Hi! Today I'm going to be making apple butter spice cake, which is just a nice warm sweet cake that is perfect for fall. So to start, you're going to need a stick of butter, half a cup, and 2 eggs. Set them out, let them come up to room temperature. Anytime you're baking, you want to get your eggs and your butter to room temperature. You want the eggs room temp and you want the butter to be nice and soft. So, if you want a delicious apple butter spice cake, make it with me. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Lightly spray or grease a 9x13 inch baking dish. I'm going to spray it. Okay? You need a cup of brown sugar, and I'm going to use this fresh bag I just opened. I had some stuff earlier, but it was kind of hard and old. So, now with brown sugar, well, with anything you put in a measuring cup, a cup measure, just pack it in nice and neat, especially for brown sugar. You want it to take up the whole cup. You don't want there to be pockets or anything. So that's nice and packed. And we'll put it in this container and you'll see it kind of come out in the shape of the cup. Yep, there you go. 1 cup of that. Then you need a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So that's a teaspoon of that. Now we need a half a teaspoon nutmeg. And I've got this awesome nutmeg from like a local spice place that just does spices. And they're really fresh and whole ground. It's the way to go when baking or cooking. So that's our half a teaspoon of nutmeg. Then you need a half a cup of chopped pecans. And you want them nice and tiny. At least that's how I want them anyway. And then just lightly stir all this together. And this is going to be our topping and then middle layer of this spice cake. It smells amazing and I cannot wait to put this in our cake and try some. So stir it up and move on to the next step. Now in a larger bowl we need to sift 2 cups of flour. So I used a butter knife to level this cup measure, so it's the perfect amount of flour. Take your sifter, dump it in. And then I just like shaking the sifter. I think it goes through really quick that way. Okay, that's 1 cup of sifted flour. Here's our second cup. Put it in and sift it. Shake it through the sifter. Okay, that's 2 cups of sifted flour. We need to sift in a teaspoon of baking powder and baking soda. So here's my teaspoon of, try to get it as even as you can. So here's my teaspoon of baking powder. Sift it in. Here's my teaspoon of baking soda. Sift that in. And then we need a half a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to measure it out over a sink. So here's a half teaspoon of salt. Let's get that in there. And then if you want, you can mix it around a little bit. Just lightly though. Okay, you need 2 beaten eggs. And you need to beat them before you add them in. So 1 hard crack. Could have been a little harder there. Pop it open. Try to get most of it out. And throw away the shell. Okay, then I'm just going to use a whisk to kind of beat them together. If ever a recipe says eggs, comma, beaten, it means you need to beat them before you add them in. Even though we are going to be beating them with other ingredients. Okay, that's 2 eggs beaten. Now take your electric mixer and get a cup of sugar in it. So there's a cup of sugar. And then your half a cup, which is 1 stick, of softened butter. And if you've left it out for an hour or 2, it will be nice and soft. There we go. Okay, now let's blend these together. Beat them together, just for a little bit. Start slow. Okay, now as you can see, that's all clumped together. So let's add in our 2 already beaten eggs, pour those in. Okay, start slow again. And I wouldn't go any quicker than this. Maybe a little quicker. Okay, it said beat well, and that's pretty well beaten. You don't want to go too much more or you'll start to get too many air pockets and that will affect the consistency. Now we need to add in 3/4 cup of apple butter. And that's what makes this an apple butter spice cake. So I got a fresh thing of apple butter. And I'm just going to pour it, or kind of spoon it into this 3/4 cup measure. And you can use a liquid cup measure if you want, just because this brand's liquidy enough. It smells really good. If you've never had apple butter, you're in for a treat. It's really good on toast and baked goods like this. It's our 3/4 cup. So add that in. I'm going to use my spoon to get it all out. Maybe just a little more. Now we need a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So carefully measure it out. There's a teaspoon. Pour that in. Now you need a half cup of whole bran cereal or half a cup of wheat germ. And I'm going to use wheat germ. I got some from a local health food store. And it's really affordable. I've never used it before. It kind of looks like a bunch of little flakes like this. I think it was like $1.50 for that whole thing. So it's pretty affordable. So take your half cup of that. Now we need to alternate between a cup of sour cream, which is 8 ounces, and this whole container is 8 ounces, so that works perfectly, and our dry sifted ingredients. So it says mix well after each addition, so I'm going to start on a low speed, just to get that wheat germ and apple butter and vanilla mixed in. And then I'm going to slowly add a little bit. I'm going to start with the dry ingredients. It says mix well after each addition. So I'd say that's pretty mixed well. And then still on a slow speed, put in a little bit of sour cream. Probably about 3 ounces there. I'm going to make sure I mix that well. Okay, back to low speed. Back to the dry ingredients. Okay, slow speed again. Sour cream. Okay, I'd say that's mixed well. Okay, so now we have our 9x13 greased or sprayed, and we've got our batter, and we've got our topping. So, first things first, pour about half of your mixture out into the pan. It's good to use an icing spatula. You can really get it out of the container this way. And then I would spread it out. I've never made spice cake before. It smells amazing, so I'm just going to assume this thickness is normal. So really spread it out best you can. You want it to be even. Okay, then take the topping we made earlier, which smells amazing, and sprinkle it on. This is like a middle layer. It said sprinkle half of it, so you can use a spoon or your fingers. I might switch to my fingers here in a second. Try to evenly coat it everywhere. Okay, I'd say that's about half my topping. Now take the remaining half of your batter and put it on. And I'm going to try to kind of spread it as I pour it, or plop it I guess in this case. Okay, and keep scraping until you get all of it out. Take the remainder of your topping, and I'm going to switch to my fingers this time, and sprinkle it on. Nice and even. Let's get this in our oven. Alright, we have our oven preheated to 350 degrees. So now we need to get our apple butter spice cake in there. And it said bake it for 40 minutes. Depending on your oven, you may have to bake more or less. I'm going to check on mine, probably around 32, 33. Once it starts getting nice and brown and firm and looking like a spice cake, it's probably ready to take out. So let's get it in and check on it in about half an hour or so. Put it back in the middle. Let it bake. It's only been about 30 minutes for me, but mine's starting to get a little dark brown, maybe even slightly burnt. So definitely check on it at around 25 minutes or so. Okay, so it turned out a little dark, maybe slightly more burnt than I had anticipated. What's weird about this recipe though is it started to smell done about 10 minutes in. The reviews are still really good though. What I think it is the top stuff, the brown sugar and all that, I think that kind of starts to burn before the rest of it does. Definitely make sure it's still not wiggling in the center, and I would say get it out once it looks pretty firm and solid. So I'm going to let this cool. I'm going to move it around, maybe put it on some wire racks so it doesn't keep cooking too much. Then cut it up and try a piece. Alright, I cut up my apple butter spice cake, put some whipped cream on it that's melting because it's hot. It looks really good. I was worried it was a little burnt, but I don't think so. So let's try a piece. Oh yeah, that's really good. It's a lot more soft than it looks on the outside. It's warm, it's hearty. You can taste the cinnamon and nutmeg really well. The pecans are really good. Super moist, super delicious, perfect for fall. Try it.